because there might be somebody who wants to build something in the Lake District or Alaska or, Fiji, I don't know, anywhere else on the planet. As long as they've got an internet connection, they should be able to create that trade system that we call commerce with each other, or impact, or both. Great. But people first is where the differentiator comes, because in increased quantity, what is the USB? It's quality. We've seen that, wheat from the chaff. It happens every single time there's an economic crash, right? The good stuff stays and the bad stuff, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on your opinion, gets cold. And so I think the age of the likes of Zappos returns, where it's about user customer experience and how can we do the extra thing, go the extra mile. Because if AI is doing our heavy lifting on the internal administration that's kept us so busy for so long, managing the logistics of this really complex machine we're trying to build that sells something, if that's doing half of my work and I've got half of my week back, what can I and should I spend my time on? And as a founder, and for all the founders that I work with, I have them certainly in the early stages doubling down on that. In a world where we feel like the product of every platform that we're using nowadays, I pay for Amazon, and Amazon Prime, and I still get adverts now. And they've got me, right, by the proverbials, because I won't quit because I need that stuff delivered tomorrow, but at the same time, you're going to give me adverts. So I'm now paying to be your product, which feels weird.
The age of intelligent machines is here, transforming how we work, connect, and live. But amidst the shift, one question stands out. What does it mean to lead, innovate, and stay human in an AI-driven world? I'm Cien, co-founder of Launch Lemonade, and in The Machine and Us, we explore the question with builders, leaders, and thinkers shaping our future. Today, I'm joined by Ash Phillips, a leading startup expert, award-winning mentor, and over 1,000 founders under his belt, founder of Rebellious with initiatives like Rebel Meetups and different. Ash has built communities for the unreasonably ambitious, creating spaces where entrepreneurial minds can connect and thrive. He's also an investor, advisor, and global speaker who shaped companies worth over £100 million. Ash, it's an absolute honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. I need to hire you to introduce me at places because that was so good. I need to do that. That was great. I'm gonna listen back and revise. But thank you for the intro, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. So my guests have been, as I told you earlier, a mixture of human and AI experts, and you've got a really strong brand. You've represented humans for quite a while now, and I just saw a LinkedIn post about you. How many members in
the community now? We've served since the beginning, and this was a surprise to me too, because I've been saying a way lower number until we merged all our groups into one place. But we've served over 16,000 people now. I think very soon it'll be over 17,000. My phone keeps popping off every day at the moment with people joining our groups and wanting to meet each other. So yeah, that's quite an intimidating number. I never really thought about it. It just looks like numbers, doesn't it? You see it on a screen, you're like, meh. And then if you think about it in real people, that's kind of scary. Like the only way I can get to that kind of number is thinking about, I don't know, the capacity of my local football stadium and realizing they probably don't get attendances that big because they're not very good.
insane? So
Yeah,
you
we got 8 countries, 25 cities, and people meeting in. I'm not super well traveled, so people are meeting in places that I've never been to, talking about things in languages that I've never spoken or will understand probably, and that's just weird to think about.
And it makes sense because you've built your brand around the unreasonably ambitious. And I can imagine so many people relate to this, but they can't find the communities that host them. And as we step into an AI driven world, the time of intelligent machines, as I like to call it, how do you think ambition is changing and how do we ensure it remains grounded in human values?
Really good question. I think I just want to kind of clarify the unreasonably ambitious thing before I answer that fully, which is that there's kind of this misnomer that unreasonable ambition is kind of associated to the world of like hustle porn and growth at all costs. But it's not necessarily what I mean. I mean, our community serves people that are square pegs and round holes. You know, being unreasonably ambitious to me was being the first person in my family to go to university, right? That was unreasonably ambitious because it's relative. So I wanted to put that out there to start with, and I don't think that's clear enough as something we need to work on as a company and a community. But ambition, I think, moving in the world of in the world of AI, I mean, historically, ambition has been about growth. It's always about growth, right? It's not necessarily, and I think this is also a misnomer to the quote unquote average Joe, to my dad, for example, who will have conversations about billionaires buying yachts, right? And he'll think it's a want for material gain. But I've never bought a yacht, so I can't really comment. But my assumption is that once you've got a 100-meter yacht, getting a 200-meter yacht isn't about the extra meterage, right? It's because of two things. One, it's about taxes, probably. And two, it's about growth. It's about progress. It's a symbol of my achievement. And so you get to billionaire status and you've completed Earth. Where do you go next? Space. So you start a space company. And of course, we know a bunch of people that have done that. But in the world of AI and the way that technology is developing, I think ambition slightly changes. Not completely, because we'll still be wanting for growth and betterment and improvement, but we'll be wanting it on a more emotive, creative, human level, I'd imagine. You know, I grew up just like you, I'm sure, through the 90s and the noughties in the age of the internet. First generation to do that. And maybe the last to do it in that form that we experienced it. Um, and the irony of being interconnected was that we ultimately have found ourselves in a loneliness pandemic. So communities have popped up and people are connecting more than they ever have before and more meaningfully. You know, there are more events than there were pre-pandemic because people realized how sad it was to be shut away from each other. So I think ambition is about how do we do more meaningfully, deeper and better for people whilst utilizing the tools that exist now to make that efficient and possible.
I love that answer, and I love that you connected it back to like your, like how your dad probably defined ambition. So
Mm.
I always talk about this. Like I feel like since the Industrial Revolution, humans have started measuring how fulfilled they are or how successful they are as humans based on our IQ level. If I'm really smart, I'm a successful person. Or if I'm really productive and I'm making a lot of money, then I'm really successful. Now, in the time of AI, where this entity could be smarter than us, and then people are already talking about how it will be smarter than us. And then if you think about AI and robots, they'll be producing more than us. What would it be? What would it mean to be human? And you've answered that really well. But I wonder, with kind of like your point with your dad, do you think that there's going to be kind of like a generational divide? And, what will happen within this kind of like what people are saying a global existential crisis? Is there going to be a divide between generations and how they'll deal with this? What do you think about that?
Really good question. This is sort of stuff that I love to talk about probably for hours. And I would say over a beer, but I don't really drink anymore. So maybe a tea, I don't know. But or on a podcast, as it were. And I think like it's kind of asking me to do something that's not officially my job, which is be somewhat a futurist. And I'm a big science fiction guy, and I read dystopian novels. So I'm going to be skewed in a certain direction, which is like what does disaster look like versus what does utopia look like. But I'm also a realist, and so I'm like, well, what's likely to happen? And I think there will be probably division, because humans are really good at that, unfortunately. And what will division look like? Well, I think we'll probably end up with some people that will be anti technology. And, I'm not coming up with original concepts here. These have been written about for a long time and featured in films and so on. There will be people that shun it because of good reasons, I'm sure, right? Like, we don't want that. That's not the way humans should be. They're going to be more naturalist in their approaches. Babies shouldn't be born in incubators, etc., etc., etc. Right? Like that's what they're going to be talking about most likely. This is a big assumption, but that might happen. And for the people that go that way, there will be a group of people possibly that go in the other direction who welcome technology and utilize it. But that group may split into two. There might be one group that utilize technology for efficiency, and these are the people that might sit in the middle, and this might actually end up being what most of humanity, looks like, who utilize it for a better world, right? Like we got cars and we didn't worship cars. We went anti cars. We just used them to go to work and come back every day. That's pretty much what we did. Was that Henry Ford's vision? I don't know, but that's what we did. And we used it and we filled the roads full of cars. There might end up being a group of people that, given the rise of potential AGI, which, we're probably right on the cusp of right now, if not already there, and we don't really know it quite yet, where things change in a slightly weirder way, which creates more deeper questions around what is intelligence, what is humanity really, what is our hierarchy in the food chain at that point, what is God? It creates huge existential philosophical questions once that happens, which I think can send ripples down the chain through everybody else. So, yeah, I mean, that's quite a scary outlook, but I think the saving grace here is that we adapt. That's our job. That's probably one of the key things that makes us human, is that things happen and we change and we fix it and we adapt. We survived the pandemic, we survive a bunch of different things. And when the worst comes to the worst, we all band together. That's sad that it has to be bad for us to all band together. That's a comment on humanity in a different conversation. But yeah, I think that might be the way it goes. Those are extreme examples. I'm sure it's probably going to be more so grey areas and blurred lines, but those are possibilities for sure.
And I guess with you, who's mentored over 1,000 founders, I guess my question is, kind of if we think about the founders, what is the biggest mindset shift they need to make to stay relevant and people first in a world increasingly shaped by these intelligent machines?
You've said it just there, people first, right? I think that's what I'm so excited about with the rise of AI and the technology that comes around it, is that in being able to lower the barrier to entry for entrepreneurship, we increase quantity. Now, that's cool because it means that anyone anywhere can build what they want to build. And that's something that I'm doing with the project that I'm working on quietly away on Ned. We're looking to put a virtual co-founder in the pocket of every potential entrepreneur on the planet, right? Huge vision and something that I feel is quite worthy, because there might be somebody who wants to build something in the Lake District or Alaska or, Fiji, I don't know, anywhere else on the planet. As long as they've got an internet connection, they should be able to create that trade system that we call commerce with each other, or impact, or both. Great. But people first is where the differentiator comes, because in increased quantity, what is the USB? It's quality. We've seen that, wheat from the chaff. It happens every single time there's an economic crash, right? The good stuff stays and the bad stuff, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on your opinion, gets cold. And so I think the age of the likes of Zappos returns, where it's about user customer experience and how can we do the extra thing, go the extra mile. Because if AI is doing our heavy lifting on the internal administration that's kept us so busy for so long, managing the logistics of this really complex machine we're trying to build that sells something, if that's doing half of my work and I've got half of my week back, what can I and should I spend my time on? And as a founder, and for all the founders that I work with, I have them certainly in the early stages doubling down on that. In a world where we feel like the product of every platform that we're using nowadays, I pay for Amazon, and Amazon Prime, and I still get adverts now. And they've got me, right, by the proverbials, because I won't quit, because I need that stuff delivered tomorrow, but at the same time, you're going to give me adverts. So I'm now paying to be your product, which feels weird. The differentiator is in doubling down on my user experience and my customer experience. So if someone's out there starting another streaming service, not that we necessarily need one, but if they are, what would I do differently? I would double down on the user. How can I do something small? And I go back to something that worked really, really well for us as a community when we were first starting out, which was when people joined, we had a membership card. I don't know why, because it didn't do anything, but I wanted one. Stupid at the time in hindsight. And I sent that card out. It was like a credit card, it was really nicely printed, like tactile. And I sent it out with a handwritten letter and a 10p bag of Haribo to every single person that signed up for like the first 50 or 100 people. And the amount of engagement we got off of that was so high. And it was mostly because of the 10p bag of Haribo. And it was just because I doubled down on human experience, right? If you go to a hotel, you might have seen these social posts just like I have, but you see people that have said, "Oh my God, this Premier Inn or whatever it might have been actually listen to our requests that we put in our request box to say, my husband's or into James Bond or my wife likes whatever. And then they'll turn up and every so often there will be a box set of those movies with a, I don't know, a martini set next to it. That extra mile that costs virtually nothing in comparison to the LTV you'll get in return is huge for not only marketing via UGC, but the lifetime loyalty of that customer. So that's a really long answer to say that I think it is about people first. It's about quality over quantity. And so can we and how do we double down on those first 5 people, the first 50 people, and ultimately how do we deliver an amazing experience for the million people that we eventually want to serve?
You've answered the following question actually, but
Efficient.
I just
Good.
want to dive deeper into that. So
Mm.
I too think that the future is going to be an ecosystem of startups or micro businesses that would plug in each other's ecosystem. So we can all potentially be able to stay relevant and participate in this time by being our own founders or entrepreneurs that plug in each other's. Um, and before we started recording, we also talked about how like easy it is now more than ever, and how important it is now more than ever to connect and network. Uh, but because of how social media has impacted, like this loneliness epidemic that's brewing. So as we talk about being people first, and then there's kind of like that kind of contradictory path with the social media and being online and having to build to participate. Do you have a framework or advice on how to build authentic human-centered communities? Because communities like rebellious.co is so rare. It's still rare, but we need more of it. So what's your advice on how to actually build authentic human-centered communities?
Yeah, really great question. This is a can of worms, really. It it kind of changes given the circumstances of the time, but there are a few things that stay permanent throughout. And obviously, they're covered way better than I would cover them by people like Maslow, right? Like we have a hierarchy of needs, and one of those needs is that we need a sense of belonging. So I think we shouldn't overlook the basics and the simplicity of it all, right? We need to feel as humans, we need to feel like we belong to something greater than ourselves, whether we like to admit that or not. We might be introverted, we might be extroverted, we might be narcissistic, we might be selfless, but we still want to feel like we're part of something on the whole. And that comes across in, and this might be another question coming up, but it comes across in the brands that we engage with, right? Like people buy Apple products because they love the product, sure, but there is a sense of cult-like brand where I'm now part of a crowd that also has Apple products. And as someone with an Android phone, if I send somebody a text message and it comes up green, they have an opinion on me that I can't control, that probably Apple controls or society controls, right? So there's something there. So what can we learn from that? Well, what we can learn from that is that we have just some like basic needs internally. We need to have a sense of belonging. So we want to provide that to our people. How do we do that practically? Well, we do that by going to where they are, making it accessible. I think that's important also from a diversity point of view, which we do really well in our community. And people ask us how we do diversity better than everybody else. And I say that we do it by almost not, we don't do it by not doing it because I'm not colorblind, quote unquote. We do it by just building in the right things first and foremost. So we go out to our community, we run events in places that are accessible to them. The events are free, so it means that there are no barriers to entry. We make sure those people can come. But they're called Rebellious, or community is called Rebellious Co. And obviously the events are Rebel meetups because that word is the thing that connects those people. They all feel like slight outliers, like mavericks, and ironically, that's the thing that connects them. And so we use that word because there's a self-identifier. So that's what we should be doing is giving people a sense of belonging. And that can come in many different forms, right? You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You could just be really into knitting, right? And that might be your whole personality for that month, that year, whatever it is. There's somebody else in your community, in your town, in your city that's also really into knitting. Get those two people together, do that using online tools if you can, get them to connect in real life. And I think this is also now a modern, thanks to technology, a modern differentiator is bringing those people together in real life. You see those benefits. I mean, we have at our events? Fireside chats. They're called fireside chats because they are proverbially the sort of chats you would have by a fire. That's where we told stories historically, and that's where we listen and learn, and where we get emotional. The lights are usually dimmed for psychological reasons and a whole bunch of stuff that goes along with that. And it's about connection, and it's about learning and understanding and feeling like you're belonging. So all of that is to say, yeah, bring people together around a central theme that they identify with, that they can feel part of, and do that in a way that's accessible to them. And if you can do that in person, whether it's two people, by the way, or 200, a lot of people think too aggressively about numbers. Two people, 10 people is amazing for an in-person gathering. Arguably better because there are deeper connections, more meaningful conversations, and relationships are built. So yeah, I think that's a part of the answer I would give. There's a huge number of other parts, but yeah, finding that sense of belonging, putting them together in real life is probably 101, I guess.
Yeah, I can attest to that actually. So when I did the fireside chat as the speaker, it was this very intimate room. Like I've spoken in front of thousands of people, but this one was quite intimate. But I still talked to two or three people who attended that evening. They still go to my other events, and we even connect like over a drink. So yeah, it's definitely special, and I relate to that brand as well. So as you look into the future with this strong brand, very clear mission, it seems, like I understand it. I get it. But what kind of legacy do you hope to leave as a human expert? Not just for the entrepreneurial world, but for how we live and work alongside intelligent systems.
Yeah, wow. That's an existential crisis waiting to happen, isn't it? That question. Yeah. I would be lying if I said I didn't think about this. And it's New Year now, right? So it's or the time of recording at least, and so it's something that I'm thinking about more than I usually would for the rest of the year. Middle of September, I'm probably going to be thinking less about what am I going to do for this year, but early Jan, I'm thinking about it. So what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? I think right now, the thing that if my hit by bus scenario is like, have I connected people and given them opportunities that can seed, all types of opportunities, as you said, not just entrepreneurship, but relationships that last a lifetime. And I know I've done that now, and I'm happy that I've done that. We've been going for over 10 years. We've got people that are friends that travel to different countries to see those friends, and they would have never met if we hadn't existed. And that's something that makes me feel really proud. That's a legacy that I can say that I'm already going to leave, and that's something I'm yeah, really proud of and humbled by. Um, then the next legacy I want to leave in this respect, as far as like AI and humanity goes, is how can we help people be, as you said at the top of the pod, better humans? How can we improve their interpersonal skills, their communication skills, their leadership skills, their confidence in challenging the status quo and norms? Because anything that's ever changed for the better was challenged at some point by somebody, and so how can we develop more of them and make them more confident in doing that? There's probably a critical mass. I think if everybody's a rebel, no one's a rebel, and that's quite weird to think about. But I'm not here to serve everyone. I'm just here to serve the people that feel like they could do something, and just have an inkling about it. So how do we unlock those innate capabilities in them? So that's what I would love to do. And if we're thinking about the legacy I want to leave, whether we quit doing this one day or again, hit by a bus scenario, or I leave the planet because Elon's figured out how to get to Mars. I'd like people on Earth to say, I'm a better person, because I engaged with something Ash did. Is that selfless? No, it's completely selfish. It makes me feel nice, and it's great. But I think the impact has a knock-on effect for the rest of the world. If someone's better at communicating, they might be a better parent, they might be a better partner, they might be a better teacher. And so there are ripples that go down through history, and to start a bit of that would be quite nice.
I love that. It's beautiful. Now,
Thank
this is the last question, and you've answered this in many ways, but I just want to ask again. What does it mean to be human in the time of intelligent machines?
think it's about, you used the word earlier, the acronym earlier, IQ. I think it's about EQ now. I think we're going to be measuring for that a lot more than we have, certainly over the last decade or two. Your differentiator in an interview now has been that for a long time, but has probably gone unspoken. I think it's going to be that more and more. If you're doing it at a small SME in your local town, or you're applying for Google and you're in their 8th interview of 20 or whatever it might be, right? If you're a developer, then sure, your code's going to need to be good, like it always has been. But in a world where AGI seems to be beating, or at least AI is beating a bunch of competitive coding competitions, then what's the difference between hiring one versus another? It's their ability to work in a team, converse, and get things done as projects. I actually remember, and this is just a little anecdote that supports this. I was on jury service a number of years ago. It's a weird experience, and got talking to a guy who worked for a company in my city in Bristol. And he works in the aerospace sector, let's say, and he said he was hiring for a role, and he interviewed this guy who had 3 degrees. He was like late 20s, early 30s, and had never left university. He said he was insanely intellectual and insanely capable, but he didn't give him a job. And I said, why? Why didn't you give him a job? And he said, well, if I could allow that person to be in a room and build a plane engine on their own, they could do it. But that's not how we work. We work as a team, and we need that teamwork. We need that communication skills, and we need that kind of camaraderie. And they couldn't do that. And that was really interesting to me to see that there was a factor there that a lot of the time doesn't get included. And I think that's going to be increasingly more important, especially as people go remote. We need to be able to have these conversations in a way where body language on the whole can't be seen and felt. So how are we saying the words we're saying? How are we understanding them? How are we managing? How are we delivering feedback? All of that stuff comes with EQ. So I think that's the thing that people should be focusing on. Am I biased? Absolutely. But in a world where I'm building a platform where AI can help you build a company, then the thing you need to do as a founder is to treat your users like humans, talk to them like humans, get them bought in emotively, and then have them buy your products and engage with your product and share with the rest of the world in a human way too. So that's EQ, interpersonal skills, communication skills, way more important than they've been for the last couple of decades, and increasingly so over the next.
Are we still in control, or are we just watching as the rules of intelligence, power, and creativity are rewritten in real time? One thing is clear: the world isn't slowing down. AI is evolving faster than policy, faster than ethics, faster than most of us can even understand. And whether we like it or not, we are all part of this experiment. So here's the real question. Are you shaping the future, or is the future shaping you? This isn't just a podcast. If you're a builder, a skeptic, a thinker, or just someone who refuses to be left behind, subscribe today, because the game has already started. And if you're not in the conversation, you're already behind. See you next time on The Human and the Machine.